3 weeks, Peggy watched the tiny bird we had brought home as if she was trying to understand what he was. Then one morning, something happened that none of us could explain. Peggy began producing milk, and Molly, the little magpie, started drinking from her. That was the moment I understood this was no longer a rescue. Somehow, a dog had decided to become a mother to a bird. But their story began on an ordinary warm day in September of 2020. I was walking Peggy through our local park on Australia's Gold Coast when we noticed something small on the ground. It was a baby magpie, still covered in soft grey feathers, alone and completely exposed. We did not rush in. His parents were in a nearby tree, so we waited and waited. Hours passed, but they would not come down to him. As the afternoon grew busier, dogs began running through the off-leash park. One excited animal was all it would take. Leaving him there no longer felt like the safe choice. So we lifted that frightened little bundle from the grass and carried him home. We called him Molly. At first, our only goal was to help him survive. He needed warmth, food, rest, and a place where nothing could hurt him. He was so fragile that every tiny movement felt important. We watched him eat. We watched him sleep. We celebrated every little sign that he was becoming stronger. Peggy was not convinced. She kept her distance and studied him carefully. She was a strong Staffordshire terrier, and Molly was small enough to fit beneath one of her paws. I never left them together without watching. Trust could not be forced. It had to grow at its own pace, and slowly, it did. Molly began following Peggy across the floor. Peggy stopped walking away. She lowered herself to his height. When she wanted to play, she chose the smallest stick she could find and held it with a gentleness I had never seen before. Then came the morning that changed everything. Molly crawled beneath Peggy and began to feed. Peggy had started producing milk. We were shocked and honestly a little frightened, so we took her to the vet. The explanation was a phantom pregnancy. Peggy's body had responded to this baby bird as though he truly belonged to her. The vet gave us a little shirt to stop Molly from suckling, but no shirt could undo what had already happened. Molly had chosen his mum, and Peggy had accepted him. From that day on, the size of their differences seemed to disappear. They slept with Molly's beak resting against Peggy's nose. They shared toys, chased each other through the house, and spent long afternoons sunbathing together. Peggy would close her eyes in the warmth, while Molly opened his wings beside her, each of them completely certain that the other belonged there. Molly grew into a confident, noisy, and wonderfully mischievous bird. He stole socks, investigated anything shiny, barked when the dogs barked, and appeared beneath doors whenever he suspected someone might be having fun without him. But beneath all that mischief was an extraordinary tenderness. In August of 2021, Peggy had a litter of puppies. We kept her only daughter and named her Ruby. Molly had once been the baby of the family. Now he had to decide what to do with a puppy who wanted to play every minute of the day. At first, Ruby's energy was a lot. Peggy had always been calm and patient. Ruby arrived like a tiny storm, but Molly soon discovered that a storm could be fun. They became siblings in every way that mattered, chasing, teasing, stealing each other's toys, and collapsing together when the game was over. Later, when other puppies entered Molly's world, he showed them the same gentleness Peggy had once shown him. The bird who had needed protection now sat beside small sleeping puppies and sang to them. Our unusual family brought joy to people around the world, but in March of 2024, everything suddenly changed. Wildlife authorities told us that Molly had been raised without the required permit. We surrendered him on the 1st of March. The house became painfully quiet. Peggy searched for him. Ruby waited. We kept looking toward the places where he should have been. The doorway, the rug, the sunny bed outside. For 45 days, our family existed with a space in the middle of it. People around the world asked for Molly to come home. The story reached newspapers, television programs, and even Queensland's premiere. Behind all that public attention, however, our hope was very simple. We wanted our family together again, and we wanted Molly to be safe. After 6 long weeks, authorities approved a specialised wildlife licence with strict welfare conditions. On the 15th of April, we were finally allowed to bring him home. At the department, Molly recognised us. He made a small cry, and so did we. When we reached the house, Peggy and Ruby could barely contain themselves. Their whole bodies wiggled with excitement. Molly answered them with his own familiar noises. There was no grand speech and no need for one. They simply knew the empty space was gone. Today, Molly still lives by his own rules. He steals what he likes, announces himself loudly, and keeps both dogs alert. Peggy remains the patient centre of the family. Ruby remains the playful one. And Molly remains the little bird who never believed he was different. People often ask us what their friendship means. I think the answer is found in the quiet moments. A wing touching a paw, a bird resting beside a dog, 3 animals asleep without questioning who is supposed to belong with whom. Peggy chose kindness. Molly chose trust. Ruby chose play. And together, they taught us that family is not always something we recognise at first sight. Sometimes it arrives as a frightened baby on the grass. Sometimes it has feathers. Sometimes it barks. And sometimes it changes the meaning of home forever.
I love you without knowing how, or when, or from where. I love you straightforwardly.